Let's start with a huge question, one of the biggest you can ask. And it's a question that King Solomon himself actually asked at the most important moment of his entire life. Think about it. Can any building, no matter how incredible, actually contain the creator of the universe? That question, well, it gets right to the very heart of one of the most magnificent structures ever built. So, in this explainer, we're diving deep into one of the most famous buildings in all of history, Solomon's Temple. This was a project of absolutely incredible scale, divinely inspired design, and, as we'll see, some really profound spiritual meaning. Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the dream behind the temple, then we'll witness its truly remarkable construction, check out its sacred furnishings, listen in on its dedication, and finally, uncover what its ultimate purpose really was. All right, so where did this whole idea even come from? Well, you might think it started with Solomon, but nope. It actually began with his father, a man whose life was, defined by something completely different. King David. He was all in. He desperately wanted to build this grand temple for God. But God told him, no. His hands, you see, had shed too much blood in battle. The construction of God's house, well, that required a time of peace, and it needed a man of peace to build it. And this is where you can really see the plan unfold. The promise, this incredible responsibility, gets passed down from father to son. It was David's heir who would bring in that exact era of peace needed for such a massive project. And you gotta love this. His name was no accident. Solomon literally means peaceful. Talk about being born for the job. His whole identity was wrapped up in creating the perfect, tranquil conditions for this sacred work. Okay, but this is super important. God lays down the law here. He makes it crystal clear that this temple, as amazing as it's going to be, isn't some magic box. His presence, that wasn't tied to the stone and the gold. No way. It was tied to the people's hearts, to their actions. Obedience, that was the real foundation. All right, let's get into the construction itself. Because honestly, how they built this thing is one of the most mind-blowing parts of the whole story. And when I say this was a monumental undertaking, I mean it. This wasn't a quick job. We're talking 7.5 years. An entire nation poured its resources into this single project. It was meticulous, slow, and very deliberate. But here's the craziest part. Imagine this huge construction site, but it's quiet. Eerily quiet. You don't hear the clang of a hammer or the thwack of an axe. Nothing. How on earth is that even possible? While the text tells us exactly how they pulled it off. Every single stone was pre-cut, perfectly finished at the quarry, which was miles away. Then they were brought to the site and just slotted into place. It was like a giant holly jigsaw puzzle. This silent construction, it was all about showing incredible reverence for the sacred ground. So let's take a quick tour, shall we? You'd start in the outer court. That was open to everyone. Then you'd move into the inner court for the priests. Deeper still is the holy place, and at the very heart of it all, the most holy place. This is where the Ark of the Covenant was kept, the symbolic center of God's presence. Now, remember, this wasn't their first house of worship. For years in the wilderness, they had the tabernacle, which was basically a portable tent. The temple was a huge upgrade. It represented a major shift from being a wandering tribe to a settled, established nation. And they didn't just rebuild it, they doubled the scale. And get this. Nothing was random. Every single material was packed with meaning. Gold, that's about faith that's been tested and purified. Cedar wood stood for righteousness. Olive wood for fruitfulness. The whole place, from the carved angels down to the flowers, was telling a story about God's relationship with his people. Okay, so the building's up, but the work's not done. Now comes another incredible task, filling it with all the sacred vessels and instruments needed for worship. And Solomon didn't mess around. He went out and got the best of the best, a master craftsman named Hiram of Tyre. This guy was a legend in bronze work, super skilled, wise, just at the top of his field. And Hiram's work was just wow. He's the guy behind those 2 gigantic bronze pillars at the entrance, that huge basin they called the Molten Sea, and 10 smaller bronze lavers on wheels. All of it was used by the priests for ritual cleansing. And those pillars weren't just for show. They had names. One was Jachin, the other Boaz. And when you walked between them to enter the temple, their names together made a sentence. He establishes in his strength. How cool is that? It was a constant reminder that this whole thing, the temple, the nation, it all stood because of God's power. And that molten sea. To give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, this thing held about 44,000 liters of water. That's over 11,000 gallons. I mean, that's kind of like a small swimming pool, made of solid bronze, sitting on 12 bronze oxen. Just an incredible piece of engineering. But then, as you moved inside, from the outer court into the holy place, everything changed. The bronze gives way to gold, pure gold. The altar for incense, 10 golden tables for the sacred bread, 10 massive golden lampstands, all the little bowls and tools, everything was gold. It was a visual cue that you were getting closer and closer to the heart of holiness. So, the building is done, the furniture is in. Now we get to the main event, the dedication. This is the moment Solomon steps up and reveals the true purpose of it all. Picture this. The priests are carrying the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object they have, into the inner sanctuary. And suddenly, this thick cloud just fills the entire temple. The text calls it the glory of the Lord. And it was so intense, so powerful, the priests literally couldn't stand up to do their jobs. It was God's way of saying, I'm here, I accept this house. And right there, in that incredible moment, with God's glory literally filling the room, Solomon asks that question we started with. He looks at this brand new, glorious temple and basically says, but can God really live here? He admits it right then and there. Heaven itself can't contain God, so how could this building? So if it's not God's house, then what is it? Well, Solomon's prayer completely redefines it. It's not a home, it's a focal point. Think of it like a spiritual GPS. It's the place where people could turn toward, wherever they were, and direct their prayers to God and heaven. It was an anchor for the nation's spiritual life. And he gets really specific. He lays out all these scenarios, praying for justice, for forgiveness after a defeat, for rain during a drought, even a prayer for the foreigner who seeks God. In every possible situation, the temple was the place you turn toward. Okay, for our last section, let's peel back one final layer. Because all this incredible architecture, all this gold and bronze, it was all pointing to something much, much deeper. Think about all those incredibly detailed vessels, the bronze lavers, the golden tables. Their purpose went way beyond just being beautiful, functional objects. They were powerful symbols, each one crafted for a specific, holy use. And here is the big reveal, the direct parallel. Just like those metal objects were chosen, cleaned, and set apart for a special, holy purpose in the temple, God's people were meant to be the same. Chosen, made holy, and useful for his purposes out in the world. And that's really the heart of it all. The stone building, the silent construction, all that gleaming gold, it was a giant physical metaphor. It was all a big arrow pointing to a deeper truth, that the place God really wants to live isn't a building, but inside the hearts and lives of people. And this isn't just a modern interpretation. This idea gets picked up and made super clear later on. The Apostle Paul uses this exact same imagery. He tells people they should cleanse themselves so they can become like those sacred temple vessels, holy, useful, and ready for any good work. Which leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. Solomon knew his amazing temple couldn't actually contain God. The whole project was pointing to something bigger. So if the ultimate temple isn't made of stone, what does it mean for us, right here and right now, to build our own lives into a glorious dwelling place for God today?